For 2 years, my arranged marriage with Adrian Blackwood had been strictly professional. We lived in separate rooms and stayed out of each other's way. Then our parents got fed up and ordered us to live together. Before bed, I habitually pulled up one of my saved goodnight audios. Adrian's voice was tight. Are you really going to listen to that in front of me? I figured he was just embarrassed, so I calmly put my phone away. Fine, I'll listen after you leave. That night, his lips brushed against my ear. Does he pant better than I do? After getting married, Adrian and I had always stuck to the rules of our marriage of convenience. A loving couple in public, complete strangers in private. Until our parents staged a surprise inspection. Adrian and I didn't have time to fake a scene. They caught us red-handed in our respective rooms. That night, every spare room in the house was suddenly put to use for storage. They even left us with only a single comforter. Refusing to give up, I tugged at a corner of the blanket, trying to make a case. I kick the covers off in my sleep. If Adrian shares with me, he'll catch a cold. We were already married. I didn't mind sharing a room. But sharing a bed and a single blanket from day one? It was too much, too soon. My mom shot a look, and the housekeeper murmured an apology before yanking the blanket out of my hands. After confirming there were no other blankets left, she smiled, satisfied. Just hold each other close. You won't be cold. With that, she waved a hand, directing the staff to haul everything away. Leaving Adrian and me to stare at each other. After a long moment, Adrian spoke up. If you're not comfortable, I can sleep on the sofa tonight. The second he said it, my mom's eyes landed on the sofa. Let's take this, too. We'll get you a new one tomorrow. I was speechless. Sometimes I really think he does it on purpose. That night, Adrian moved into my bedroom, pillow in tow. One of the buttons on his pajama shirt was loose. When he bent over to place his pillow on the bed, it slipped open, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of his abs. Hiding my phone behind a magazine, I practically smashed the camera button. I was snapping away when Adrian suddenly asked, "Like what you see?" I answered on instinct. It's a little hard to tell. He'd only unbuttoned one button, so my view was limited. A second later, I realized what I just said. I quickly played dumb. What did you say just now? I was so engrossed in this magazine, I didn't hear you. Adrian's expression didn't change. I was asking if you thought this outfit looked good on me. He was a natural model. He looked good in everything. Of course, he looked best in nothing. Slightly annoyed that I didn't get a better look, I secretly hid my phone and replied, "It's average." Adrian's face darkened slightly. He changed the subject. What did you say was hard to see earlier? I tapped the magazine. The diamonds on the model are so small, you can barely see them unless you look really closely. I was just making it up as I went. Adrian clearly didn't take it seriously. He just nodded and started unbuttoning the rest of his shirt as he walked toward the bathroom. The moment before he stepped inside, he shrugged off his pajama top, revealing the sleek, muscular lines of his back. But he was too fast. The bathroom door was shut before I could even fumble for my phone. I didn't get to see what I wanted to see, and I didn't get to photograph what I wanted to photograph. I punched Adrian's pillow in frustration. What's the point of having muscles if you don't let anyone see them? A total waste. Adrian took a very long shower. So long that I started getting sleepy and, out of habit, opened up one of my favorite sleep audios. Even though we'd slept in separate rooms since we got married, I had never forgotten my true calling as a perv. Every night, I strictly followed my 3-step ritual. First, pop into a few thirst trap streams and leave some tips. Next, scroll through the hundreds of kneeling in a suit videos in my saved list and leave some shameless comments. Finally, open my cloud drive and listen to an immersive sleep aid audio from my favorite voice actor. But after a long day of dealing with my mom, I was exhausted. I fell asleep after just one audio clip. When I startled awake later, the audio was still playing. And Adrian was sitting up in bed, looking at me like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Thinking I was still dreaming, I ignored him, rolled over, and went back to sleep. I didn't even turn the audio off. Before I could drift off again, I heard Adrian's strained voice from behind me. "You. Do you have to do this in front of me?" I became slightly more coherent. Listen to what? It was just a normal sleep audio. Figuring I was bothering him, I tapped my screen twice. "Okay, I'll turn it down." Adrian said nothing. 10 minutes later, he spoke again. "Tonight, can you not? At least not with me here." What was all this nonsense? I couldn't make sense of it. I was already getting sleepy again, so I turned off my phone and mumbled a reassurance. "I'll use headphones tomorrow." Before he could reply, I added, "And if you really don't want to hear it, I'll wait until you move back to your own room." It was clear Adrian still preferred sleeping alone. Once our parents let their guard down, he'd probably move back. A few nights without my audios wouldn't kill me. I could still sleep. Adrian's voice sounded off. "Can't you just delete him? I'm already cranky when I get woken up." Hearing him say that made me snap fully awake. Why should I? I'd already compromised. He thought it was loud, so I offered to use headphones. If that wasn't enough, I'd wait until he moved out. And that still wasn't good enough for him. He wanted me to delete all my audios. Next, he'd probably try to ban me from using my phone before bed. This was ridiculous. Maybe it was the long shower or something else, but Adrian's eyes were a little red. His voice isn't even that good. That was just slander. The audios I saved were a carefully curated, premium selection. They were immersive and beautifully performed. The scripts were great, too. Unlike Adrian. We were married, but he wouldn't let me kiss him, wouldn't let me hug him. And now he was going to criticize what I listened to before falling asleep. I scoffed. "What do you mean, not good? It's the best voice I've ever heard. And I'm not just listening tonight. I'm going to listen every single night from now on. If you can't handle it, then call a locksmith tomorrow, change the lock, and move back to your own damn room." The problem was his, after all. If our parents asked, he'd be the one who had to explain. Seeing that I was genuinely angry, Adrian backed down. "Fine. If you don't want to delete them, don't." But he still had more to say. I shot him a glare. But what? Whatever he said, my answer would be the same. If he couldn't accept it, he could move back to his room. I was just listening to a sleep audio. I wasn't doing anything illegal. What right did he have to control me? Adrian pressed his lips together, hesitating. I didn't press him, just pulled the covers up and went to sleep. Maybe it was because we'd argued right before bed, but I had a dream that night. I dreamed Adrian's lips were close to my ear, his breathing low and ragged. The dream was so realistic, a tingling sensation spread from my ear to my heart. I subconsciously raised a hand to touch my ear, trying to shake off the strange feeling. But before my hand reached it, my wrist was grabbed. "Honey, does he pant better than I do?" That sounded like Adrian's voice. Still thinking I was dreaming, I kept my eyes closed, rolled over, and draped my leg over him. I mumbled. I had no idea who he was comparing himself to. But my rebellious streak told me that even in a dream, I shouldn't say what Adrian wanted to hear. Because he never said what I wanted to hear. I don't dream often. So when I woke up, my brain was still foggy. I stared into space for who knows how long before my eyes caught the extra pillow next to me. That's when the dream from last night came flooding back. In the dream, Adrian had grabbed my wrist and made all sorts of sounds that made my heart race. Not only that, but he kept asking me if his panting sounded better than someone else's. Since it was a dream, I couldn't remember my answer. I just remembered that Adrian wasn't happy with it. He just pouted and sulked in silence after that. Remembering the sounds from the dream, my ears started to burn again. Adrian making noises like that, it was incredibly hot. If only I could hear it one time while I was awake. Blushing, I buried my head under the covers. I held back for a moment but couldn't help it, letting out a series of quiet giggles. My mind ran through all sorts of scenarios inspired by the sounds from the dream. I finally lifted my head from the covers. When I saw the figure standing in the doorway, the smile froze on my face. Adrian's eyes met mine. He gave an awkward tug at the corner of his lips. I knocked, but you didn't hear me. Did that mean he heard my psycho laugh? Even though I knew Adrian didn't have the superpower to read minds, not yet, anyway, I still felt the guilt of being caught red-handed. We stared at each other in silence for a long time. I tried to cover my tracks. I was just watching a video, and the volume was too loud. Adrian nodded in understanding. I know. He was acting so considerate. But it only made me feel more awkward. What did he know? Did he know about the filthy things I was thinking? Or did he know that after just one night of sharing a bed with him, I was already having these kinds of spicy dreams? The more I thought about it, the more embarrassed I got. I couldn't even face him. I even skipped dinner, claiming I wasn't feeling well and hiding in the room. Maybe my avoidance was too obvious. That night, Adrian didn't come back to the room. I figured he'd had one of the guest rooms cleaned out, so I didn't ask. After my shower, I climbed into bed and clicked into a sleep aid live stream out of habit. After 2 minutes, I exited, completely bored. I used to think these streamers had amazing voices and interesting scripts. But ever since hearing Adrian in my dream last night, nothing else sounded good. Realizing my thoughts were heading into X-rated territory again, I snapped back to reality and reopened the stream. I adjusted the volume up and down, trying to drive the sound of Adrian's voice from my head. The method was somewhat effective. While I was still bored, at least I wasn't thinking about Adrian anymore. Mission accomplished. I exited the stream with satisfaction. The exit button didn't respond on the first tap. Just as I was about to tap it again, I heard a faint noise from the door. Startled, I clutched my phone. Before I could get out of bed to check, the door was pushed open gently. Adrian was holding a stack of gift boxes, with several bags hanging from his wrists. He looked like he'd run all the way up from downstairs. The moment he set the boxes down, I heard him panting softly. It was different from the dream, but still strangely seductive. Realizing my thoughts were straying again, I cleared my throat and asked him, "Why are you back so late?" Adrian pointed to the boxes on the floor. "All that jewelry from the magazine last night, I bought it all." My interest was instantly piqued. I threw off the covers, squatted on the floor, and started tearing into the gifts. Adrian squatted next to me, helping me clean up the wrapping paper. It should have been a perfect team effort. But after I finished opening the gifts, I realized something was off. Adrian was still panting. He was still panting. It had been over 10 minutes since he came in, and all we did was open some presents. How could he be so out of shape? Noticing my strange look, Adrian asked carefully, "Why are you looking at me like that? Don't you like the gifts?" I hesitated. I like them. I'd read online that men who are lacking in certain areas often try to compensate with material things. But Adrian and I had been married for 2 years and still slept in separate rooms. Why would he be doing this? Was he finally planning to come clean because he couldn't hide it anymore? As my mind was racing with these thoughts, a deep, magnetic voice suddenly came from my phone. "Mia, are you still there?" I looked at my phone on the floor and realized I was still in the live stream. I must have been so excited opening presents that I accidentally hit the co-host button. The streamer, not hearing me speak or choose a script from the chat, was checking in. The stream was still repeating my name. Adrian's face grew darker and darker. As I fumbled to exit the stream, he suddenly spoke up. "My wife isn't here." I froze. The streamer froze, too. A second later, he stammered, "Oh, okay, bye, Mia." Seeing that Adrian was about to say more, I quickly exited the stream. Maybe it was from anger, but Adrian had even stopped panting. He closed his eyes and took a long time to compose himself before speaking, his voice strained. You like him a lot? He was alright, I guess. My fan badge for him was only level 10. I had level 14 badges in other streamers' channels. I answered honestly, he's okay. There are others I like more. I had only joined this stream today because the others weren't live yet. Adrian clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. Who else? There were so many names, I couldn't remember a single one. Every time I wanted to watch a stream, I just scrolled through my followed list. So when Adrian asked, my brain short-circuited. You, I blurted out. Adrian stared at me, a blank look in his eyes. Me? Seeing his reaction, I instantly realized I'd said the wrong thing. I'd never heard Adrian make those kinds of sounds in real life. How could I possibly make a comparison? Before Adrian could think too deeply about it, I scrambled to explain. I mean, your normal speaking voice. I really like it. A small smile lifted the corners of Adrian's mouth. I'm glad you like it. Maybe it was my imagination, but in that moment, his voice sounded much better than it had just a minute ago. After that one compliment, Adrian inexplicably turned into a chatterbox. Things that could be conveyed with a single look now had to be spoken out loud. And one sentence wasn't enough. He'd break it down word for word, like he was translating a legal document. And if he spoke, I had to respond. This back and forth made my mom incredibly proud of her brilliant decision. She shot me a smug look, raising her eyebrows. If I hadn't forced you to live together, would your relationship be progressing this fast? Other people would be holding their grandkids by now, and you two would still be sleeping in separate rooms. Well, it wouldn't have gone that far. Adrian and I had an agreement. This was just a business arrangement. If we never developed feelings for each other, we'd get divorced when the time was up. But I didn't dare say that out loud, so I just laughed it off. I played along and told her that her plan was absolutely genius. I thought that would be the end of it, that my mom would be satisfied. But apparently, she still thought our progress was too slow. Before leaving, she did the exact same thing as before, packing up and taking everything she could carry. The worst part was, she only told me after she was already home. So when Adrian got out of the shower, he discovered that the bath towels, the bathrobes, and anything else that could cover a body had been completely cleared out. He stood in the bathroom, debating for a good half an hour. Finally, he poked his head out and asked cautiously, "Honey, where did the towels go?" Maybe it was the steam, but even the tips of his ears were red. The sight of a beautiful man fresh from the shower was incredibly alluring. I stared for a few seconds before unnaturally looking away. I'll go look for them. I searched all the places where towels might be but found no trace of them. I pulled out my phone, about to call our housekeeper to ask. Then I saw a text from my mom, a golden opportunity. Mom knows you love this stuff. Seize the day. I sighed and rubbed my forehead. My mom was really something else. Worried that Adrian would get cold if he stayed in the bathroom too long, I had no choice but to pass him my own pink bath towel. I had just bought it a few days ago and hadn't put it in the bathroom yet. That's how it escaped my mom's raid. Adrian's hand paused as he took the towel. Yours? Is that okay? I pushed it a little further toward him. We were husband and wife, not strangers who just met. What was the big deal? Since I didn't mind, Adrian didn't make a fuss. But the moment he walked out of the bathroom with the towel wrapped around his waist, a wave of heat shot straight to my head. My towel was way too small for Adrian. It barely covered the essentials. His pecs and abs were on full display. It was a much bigger shock to my system than any thirst trap stream. I didn't say a word, just stared. Adrian blushed under my gaze and was about to speak. Do you, Lee? But I just sighed. He looked better than anyone on the streams, and he was so much closer. Too bad it was still look but don't touch. The smile on Adrian's lips froze. He looked down at himself, then back up, his brow furrowed. Seeing him just standing there, I worried he'd get cold and rushed to hand him his pajamas. But Adrian's eyes suddenly turned red. "I'm sorry." "Huh? Sorry for what?" I was completely baffled and wanted to ask what he meant. But Adrian didn't give me the chance. Looking like he'd suffered a massive blow, he clutched the towel and shuffled out of the room. His retreating figure looked lonely and broken. I couldn't figure out why he'd suddenly reacted that way, so I tiptoed after him. When Adrian stopped, I saw him leaning against the wall, shirtless, staring down at his own abs, his lips pressed into a tight line. As he stared, his lip trembled. A large tear rolled down his cheek. I stood frozen, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. Seriously? He was fine just a second ago. How did he go from that to hiding in the hallway crying in the blink of an eye? I was still hesitating, wondering if I should go ask what was wrong. Then I saw Adrian lift his head, his expression resolute, and walk decisively toward the stairs. Halfway down, he seemed to sense something. He looked up toward where I was standing. I instinctively ducked into the guest room beside me. Even though I had no idea why Adrian was crying, I knew that if he was hiding, it was because he didn't want me to see him vulnerable. So I'd just pretend I didn't know. That's what my brain told me to do. But before I fell asleep, seeing that Adrian still hadn't returned to the room, I felt a little unsettled. I couldn't even get into my usual nightly ritual. I opened a thirst trap stream. All I could see was the image of Adrian wrapped in my pink towel. Yeah, not as good as him. I opened a sleep aid stream. All I could hear was the sound of Adrian's voice from my dream. Not as good as him either. Damn it. Why was my brain so full of Adrian? I closed the stream and irritably swiped through my phone. I happened to land on a video of a guy kneeling in a suit. Adrian had never done that. But I couldn't help but imagine him doing it. Realizing I was once again thinking things that shouldn't be broadcast, I angrily flipped my phone face down and forced myself to sleep. But the more I closed my eyes, the more the image of Adrian danced around in my head. And to make matters worse, it was the image of him standing in the doorway, wrapped in that towel, crying. Great. Now I was wide awake. I flipped my phone back over and sent Adrian a text. "Why aren't you back in bed yet?" I'd browsed a dozen streams. Right now, I desperately wanted to hear Adrian's voice. The kind of wanting where you can't sleep without hearing it. But 5 minutes passed, and Adrian didn't reply. I sent him a poke. Still no response. A wave of anxiety washed over me. Adrian rarely brought work home. So he probably wasn't working right now. Thinking about his unusually low mood today, I bit my lip and decided to give him a voice call. Adrian answered. He sounded like he'd been crying hard, his voice thick with congestion, and he was a little out of breath. I picked at the edge of my phone case, my heart suddenly racing. "What are you doing?" Adrian didn't answer directly. "What's wrong?" Hearing that his mood had improved a bit, I didn't press him and just asked, "It's late. Are you coming back to the room to sleep?" He answered decisively, "Yes. I'm coming back now." Less than 2 minutes later, the bedroom door was pushed open. Adrian had changed into his pajamas, with the buttons done up to the very top. Only a sliver of his neck was visible. I pretended to be reading a magazine, but I was actually watching him closely. His eyes were a little swollen, but there was a smile on his lips. He looked to be in a much better mood. Relieved, I patted the spot next to me. "Come to bed." Adrian paused for a second. "Oh, okay." Having heard his voice before bed, I closed my eyes, satisfied. Just as I was starting to feel drowsy, I heard Adrian ask tentatively, "Aren't you going to listen to his voice tonight?" I shook my head with my eyes still closed. "No, I already heard yours." A long time passed without another word from Adrian. I peeked through my lashes. I saw him staring at me, the corners of his mouth turned up in a slight smile. When he saw my eyes open, his gaze darted away. "Well, good night then," he added. I silently pulled the covers up higher, feeling my ears get strangely hot. For the rest of the night, neither of us spoke. Just as I was starting to drift off, I heard Adrian lean close to my ear and whisper, "I'll work harder." Sleep vanished completely. I instinctively wanted to open my eyes but was afraid I'd startle him again. So I just clutched the covers at my side, trying to calm the sudden racing of my heart. Something wasn't right. The image of Adrian whispering in my ear was too familiar. Too familiar to have just been a dream. It felt more like he'd done this before. My mind was a tangled mess. But Adrian wasn't finished. Seeing that I hadn't woken up, he grew bolder, placing a soft kiss on my forehead before pulling back and whispering by my ear again, "Mine is the best, right?" Every move he made was a surprise. My carefully controlled breathing hitched. The next second, I heard the sound of Adrian suddenly falling back onto the bed. Probably because he was so nervous, he hadn't controlled his strength when he lay back down. And since I have a habit of wrapping myself into a burrito with the covers, Adrian pulled most of the blanket with him, causing me to roll across the bed. By a stroke of luck, I rolled right into his back. His back muscles were pretty solid. Adrian's body went rigid. He played dead, not daring to move. So, that time Adrian had whispered in my ear, making those sounds, it very likely wasn't a dream. I carefully replayed the situation in my mind. It happened because I had habitually turned on my sleep audio. Adrian had asked if I could not listen to it in front of him. Then I got upset, feeling like he was interfering with my life. So Adrian didn't say anything more. Shortly after, he had leaned close to my ear and made the same kinds of sounds as the sleep audio. Staring at Adrian's back, an incredible thought slowly formed in my mind. Was he doing that to compete with the audio streamer? No wonder he was so happy today when I said I liked his voice. Once I had a theory, I needed to confirm it. I reached out and poked him. "Adrian?" His body flinched, but he didn't answer. I poked him again. "Adrian, I have to ask you something." He remained silent, stubbornly pretending to be asleep. He had the guts to do it but not to admit it. Annoyed, I slipped my hand under the hem of his pajama shirt and brazenly felt his back muscles. One touch, he was still pretending. 2 touches, still faking it. As my hand was about to circle around to the front, Adrian finally reacted. He grabbed my hand, but he still didn't turn around. "Hush, go to sleep." At least he was talking. I couldn't see his expression, so I half knelt on the bed and leaned over his arm. "Adrian," I said, "I have to ask you something." Adrian's voice was incredibly hoarse, but he still didn't turn. "Ask me tomorrow." If I wait until tomorrow, he'd have all night to come up with an excuse. What would be the point of asking then? I really wanted to know the answer. But no matter how much I poked or prodded him, Adrian wouldn't make another sound. He was determined not to answer me. My competitive spirit kicked in, and I reached straight for his abs. Sure enough, Adrian reacted with lightning speed, grabbing my wrist. "It's not time yet." "Not time for what?" "To answer a question." Confused, I struggled slightly, and Adrian, thinking he'd hurt me, let go as if he'd been shocked. "I'm sorry. But just give me a little more time. It won't be long. I promise." He said all this without ever turning to face me. I flopped back onto my side of the bed in a huff. "Fine, don't tell me." It's not like I was dying to know, anyway. For a long time after that, I barely saw Adrian at home. I assumed he was busy with work and was considerate enough not to bother him. Until my mother noticed that our relationship development plan had stalled and ordered me to bring Adrian some lunch. I was too lazy to go, but I couldn't resist the bribe of a new handbag, so I agreed. By the time I finally dragged myself to Adrian's company, I found out he wasn't there. Perfect. I didn't really want to see him anyway. Just as I was about to head home, my mom's supervisory phone call came in. I told her Adrian wasn't there, but she didn't believe me. She thought I was just making excuses to avoid going out. Defeated, I held up my phone and asked Adrian's secretary where he was. The secretary answered plainly, "Mr. Blackwood has already left for the day." Only then did my mom give up. But I thought I'd misheard. He left for the day? It was the middle of the afternoon. A workaholic like Adrian had already clocked out? The secretary nodded. Yes, Mr. Blackwood has been leaving at this time recently. After confirming with the secretary multiple times that Adrian had no other work commitments, I gave him a call. Adrian answered instantly. But whatever he was doing, he was breathing heavily. Even more heavily than the day he brought me the gifts. I cleared my throat and asked, "What are you doing?" Adrian took a breath. "I'm at home." Damn it. I had just left home a little while ago and hadn't seen him at all. Besides, our housekeeper knew where I was going. If Adrian were home, she wouldn't have let me make a wasted trip. To get to the bottom of it, I hung up and raced home, wanting to get there before Adrian could. The moment I walked in, I started recording on my phone and pushed open the door to each room, one by one. Video evidence, so Adrian couldn't accuse me of making things up. I had checked most of the rooms, and there was no sign of him. Until the door to the gym was pushed open. Adrian turned his head, and his eyes met mine. I could see the panic on his face. Without a word, he grabbed a jacket from the side. Only after he had wrapped himself up tightly did he speak. "What's wrong?" So he really was home. My voice lacked some of its earlier confidence. "I went to your office to bring you lunch, but you weren't there." I looked behind him and asked, "Why did you come home to work out in the middle of the day?" And he came home without letting anyone know. Working out isn't something you need to hide. At the mention of working out, Adrian's gaze shifted nervously. "I just got the urge while I was at work." That was obviously a lie. Combined with his behavior over the past few days, I felt even more strongly that something was wrong. I narrowed my eyes at him. "Adrian, are you hiding something from me?" I thought that now that we were face to face, Adrian would finally give me an explanation. But he just looked down at himself and flatly denied it. No. If it was nothing, why did he keep looking at himself? It was just like that time in the hallway. He looked, and then he cried. A million terrible scenarios flashed through my mind. I decided to stop asking and just get to the bottom of it myself, reaching for Adrian's jacket. "What's wrong with you?" "Let me see." Adrian clutched the jacket tightly, his eyes turning red as he struggled. "Not yet." The more he struggled, the more it confirmed something was wrong. But there was a huge strength difference between us. Brute force wasn't going to work. I let go of him, pretending to give in. Then when? Adrian actually thought about it seriously. 3 days. 3 days? He might as well just kill me now. I shot him a glare and nodded. "Fine. I'm leaving then." Seeing me about to leave, Adrian visibly relaxed. I took a few steps, looking back over my shoulder. "I'm going now." "Am I really going?" Adrian seemed eager for me to leave faster, even guiding me toward the door. I snuck a glance at him. Right now, Adrian was completely focused on getting me out of there. His guard was down. I saw my chance. The moment one foot was already out the door, I spun around and lunged for his jacket. Adrian was faster, grabbing my wrist. My curiosity, unsatisfied and thwarted again and again, finally boiled over. I was furious. "Adrian." His voice was practically pleading. "Just wait a little longer." I yanked my hand free and turned and left without another word. "Fine, don't show me." "Who cares? It's not like I'm desperate for his body or anything." Adrian opened his mouth, but in the end, he didn't chase after me. Fuming, I opened my saved list and started recommending every thirst trap video I could find. That night, I deliberately turned up the volume on my sleep audio as loud as it would go. It only took one night. Adrian couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, he sent me a text, asking me to come down to the gym. I was still holding a grudge. I glanced at the message and refused. Can't. Busy watching streams. Please. I just pretended I didn't see it. Then I went and recommended a dozen more thirst trap videos. 2 minutes later, the internet went out. I was about to call the housekeeper to check the router when another text from Adrian came in. Can you come now? Low blow. I rolled over and ignored him. Adrian was relentless. Just come for a second. I'm hurt. What was he trying to pull now? I wanted to ignore him. But after scrolling aimlessly through a few videos, I couldn't help but go downstairs. I got to the gym door, but before I could push it open, I heard Adrian's breathless voice from inside. No way. Was he hurt that badly? Was he in that much pain? I forgot all about being angry and threw the door open. The sight that greeted me was Adrian lifting dumbbells, the muscles in his arms defined and beautiful. Hearing the noise, he turned to look at me, his panting not yet subsided. His t-shirt accidentally caught on a piece of equipment nearby. Rip. The shirt was torn in two. He didn't look hurt. He looked like he was running a fever. My eyes fell on his pecs, then moved down to his abs. I felt 2 streams of warmth run from my nose. Adrian immediately dropped the dumbbells and grabbed the ripped t-shirt to stop my nosebleed. I took it and asked irritably, "Weren't you guarding yourself against me like I was a thief? What's all this now?" He wouldn't let me look when I wanted to. Now that I didn't want to look anymore, he was pulling these little tricks. Adrian's abs swayed in front of me, intentionally or not. You were so dissatisfied with my body back then. How could I dare let you look? I frowned. When was I? Besides this time, I had only seen his abs once. And I had liked them so much I wanted to pounce on him and ravage him. When was I ever dissatisfied? Seeing my denial, Adrian prompted, "That time I used your towel." You sighed. I was sighing because I could only look and not touch. Wait. A light bulb went off in my head. If I remembered correctly, the day Adrian hid in the hallway crying while staring at his abs was that same day. And after that day, whenever he saw me, he was always bundled up tight. He wouldn't show a thing. I blinked and asked tentatively, "So, you thought I hated your body, so you hid in the hallway crying, and then you started skipping work every day to come home and work out?" It was too absurd. So absurd that it felt like something I had just imagined. But the bright red tips of Adrian's ears told me I had to believe it. I poked his abs. Is that what happened? At this point, Adrian didn't bother hiding it anymore. He threw caution to the wind and nodded. Yes. When I told you it wasn't time yet, it was just because I hadn't worked out enough to satisfy you. My eyes couldn't help but drift back to his abs. Sensing my gaze, Adrian asked nervously, "So, are you satisfied now?" Very satisfied. I'd always been satisfied. But this was a golden opportunity, and I wasn't going to let it go so easily. I put on a sigh. Well, I'd be even more satisfied if I could touch them. Before the words were even out of my mouth, Adrian had taken my hand and placed it on his abs. I struggled to keep my lips from smiling. Not bad. I'm very satisfied. If only I could also. Hee hee. Before I could continue that thought, Adrian pulled me into his arms. If you're satisfied, can you only look at me from now on? His voice dropped lower. Not at anyone else? He'd already gone this far. I didn't have the heart to tease him anymore. I buried my face in his chest and mumbled, "Adrian, I didn't sigh because I was dissatisfied. I sighed because I could only look and not touch." Adrian's body went stiff. I continued, "Those other guys are just thirst trap streamers. It was always just for looking." Adrian's hand pressed against my waist, holding me even tighter. "No. If you're satisfied, it means mine is better than theirs. From now on, you only look at me." I couldn't help myself. My hands crept up his back again, feeling his muscles. "Well, that depends on your performance." Adrian immediately swept me up into his arms. I don't know how much time passed before he was panting in my ear. Honey, do I sound good when I pant? My cheeks were burning. Yes, very good. The corners of Adrian's lips curled up, and he panted with even more enthusiasm. Thanks to Adrian's exceptional performance, my 3-step nightly ritual has been almost completely abandoned. Though, from time to time, I'll open my favorite kneeling in a suit video and casually let it play in front of him. He gets the hint. That very night, he put on shirt stays and his red-bottom shoes and knelt before me to apologize. He apologized for everything from not being a good communicator to not letting me touch his abs sooner. But I didn't hear a word he said. I just wanted to kiss him. Before I could make a move, Adrian's hand closed around my ankle. Honey, have you forgiven me? I had just nodded when he used my ankle to pull me down. So you won't watch them anymore, okay? Okay. Of course, okay. I can definitely tell the difference between something I can see and touch versus something I can only see. But I didn't agree right away. Instead, I pulled up another one of my favorites and laid out my terms. Then tomorrow, I want to see this. Adrian didn't say anything. I was just about to make a fuss. But his lips were already on mine. When the kiss ended, I heard him say in a hoarse voice, okay. Whatever you want to see, I'll wear it. He learns so fast.